or the employer wants to change his payments. He deletes some payments. Now a dispute happened. Now he wants some kind of a rearranging the payments. So this kind of things, you can have a supplementary agreement, means another parallel agreement. So we don't want to sign a new contract, but we can sign a supplementary agreement to address the significant changes to the original contract. So we call supplementary agreement, but still we are doing the job. And then we have a memorandum of understanding, MOU. In Sri Lanka, MOUs were very famous in 1980s, right? So MOUs means those are not perfect contracts. It is some kind of temporary agreements, temporary arrangements, understandings, but it will not form a contract. There's no specific liabilities if you violate. But there is an understanding, okay, temporarily. For example, if you want to stop a war temporarily for a limited period, you can sign a memorandum of understanding. So similar way, if contracting parties want to sign some certain conditions, certain arrangements for a temporary period, a short period, then they can sign MOU, memorandum of understanding. Then settlement agreements. These things are happening in this part of the world widely. So if parties, they don't want to continue with the contracts, but the things are not fulfilled, but they want to stop this contract, the execution of the contract, then they can settle. Okay, I have to pay you this much amount, please accept, and please leave the project by with securing, and you give me whatever the balance from the advance payment I paid you, and I will give the all the retention money which I kept with me. So these things. So it is a settlement agreement. Parties settle. And joint ventures. These joint ventures, it is happening in construction industry. We call JVs. The companies can join. Most probably these agreements for a certain task. We call SPVs also, special purpose vehicles. So 2-3 companies, if a big, for example, if it's a very big infrastructure project coming up, the construction companies, they discuss, okay, nobody has individual capacity to take over this contract. Then they join, they officially join, and they sign a contract, and they will come up with a joint venture, 2 or 3 or 5 or 6 companies, and they will tell to the employer, we are jointly taking this contract. So we have resources, we have financial capacities to do this contract. So these kind of things we call joint ventures. These are temporarily task-based. Then we have a type of partnerships. What is partnerships? Partnerships, we know partnership companies. Those are long-term scenarios. The companies agree to share their financials for a certain business, and they work as partners for a long time, long period. It is not project specific mostly, but JVs, we can see it is mostly project specific. So these are the various types of contracts. When we talk about contracts, all these types are coming up anytime. Within a project, we can see all of these types. So we should know whenever it comes. හොඳයි මේ contract එක ඇතුළේ තියෙන උප කොන්ත්‍රාත් උප වර්ග ගැන අපි මේ කතා කළේ. main construction contract එක අපි දන්නවා. contract එක amend කරන්න පුළුවන් කියලා දන්නවා. sub contracts තියෙනවා කියලා දන්නවා. novation assignments, novation එක කියලා කියන්නේ rights and obligations දෙකම. ඒ කියන්නේ තමන්ගේ වගකීම් සහ තමන්ගේ අයිතිය දෙකම වෙනත් පාර්ශ්වයකට මාරු කරනවා එක පාර්ශවයක් සමග තියෙන ගනුදෙනුව තව එකකට මාරු කරනවා. ඒක නොවේෂන්. අසයින්මන්ට් කියලා කියන්නේ ඉන්ෂුරන්ස් එකක් වගේ ජීවිත රක්ෂණයක් තමන්ගේ බිරිඳට හරවනවා වගේ ඒ ඉන්ෂුරන්ස් එකේ බෙනිෆිට් එක ට්‍රාන්ස්ෆර් කරනවා. ඒක අසයින්මන්ට් එක. මේ දෙක අතර වෙනසක් තියෙනවා. ඊළඟට බොන්ඩ්ස් අපි දන්නවා ගරන්ටිස් දන්නවා වොරන්ටිස් දන්නවා ගරන්ටිස් and වොරන්ටිස් අතර වෙනස තමයි ගරන්ටි එකක් දෙන්නේ තුන්වෙනි පාර්ශවයට. වොරන්ටි එකක් දෙන්නේ ඒ තමන් ඒ භාණ්ඩය නිෂ්පාදනය කරන පාර්ශවය විසින්මයි. බොන්ඩ් එකක් කියන්නේ බැඳීම. කවුරු හරි ඇග්‍රීමන්ට් එකක් අත්සන් කරනවා මෙතනත් බොන්ඩ් එකක් තියෙනවා. ඒකට සමහරු performance bond කියලා කතා කරනවා performance guarantee කියලාත් කතා කරනවා. මේ දෙකම වරදක් නැහැ. ඒක බොන්ඩ් එකක් තියෙනවා. කවුද බොන්ඩ් එක අත්සන් කරන්නේ? බැංකුව සහ අයිතිකරුවා. ඒ කියන්නේ ප්‍රොජෙක්ට් එකේ employee and the bank they are signing a bond. That's okay. Right? Then collateral warranties lift එකක් ගැන අපි කතා කරන උදාහරණයක් ඇටියට lift supply දෙනවා collateral warranty එකක්. ඒ collateral warranty එක ඉස්සෙල්ලා construction contract එකට තියෙනවා. ඊට පස්සේ ඒක දීර්ඝකාලීන warranty එකක්. ඒක මාරු වෙනවා building එකේ අයිතිකරුවාට. ඒ නිසා අපි කියනවා collateral අවුරුදු දෙකක් contract එක ගාව තිබිලා ඊට පස්සේ මාරු වෙනවා අයිතිකාරයට. ඒක අපි කියනවා collateral warranty එක කියලා. supplementary agreement එක කියලා කියනවා අපි agreement එකක් තියෙනවා. ඒ agreement එකේ යම් කරුණු අපිට වෙනස් කරන්නලා වෙනත් agreement එකක් අත්සන් කරන්න ඕනේ ඒ අදාළ කරුණු වලට පමණයි. උදාහරණයක් ඇටියට අයිතිකරුවාට මේ විදිහටම ගෙවාගෙන යන්න බෑ. එයාගේ 5ක් 6ක් arrears වුණා payments. එයාට ඕනේ මේක reschedule කරන්න. කොන්ත්‍රාත් කරුවට ගෙවන්න. එතකොට එයාට පුළුවන් supplementary agreement එකක් අත්සන් කරන්න. ඊට අමතරව additional works ආවා. ඒ additional works එක දැන් කොහොමද කරන්නේ? ඒ rates පාවිච්චි කරන්න contractor කැමති නැහැ. එහෙම නැත්නම් employee කැමති නැහැ ඒ rates පාවිච්චි කරන්න. එයාට ඕනේ අලුත් rates. එතකොට එයාට යන්න පුළුවන් supplementary agreement එක. Memorandum of Understanding MOU කියලා කියන්නේ తాවකාලික ගිවිසුමක්. ඒ ගිවිසුම නීත්‍යානුකූල හරියටම බලංගුයි කියලා හිතන්න බෑ. ඒ තියෙන කරුණු වෙනස් වෙන්න පුළුවන්. తాවකාලික ගිවිසුමක්. ඊළඟට settlement agreement කියලා කියන්නේ තවදුරටත් කොන්ත්‍රාත්තුව පවත්වාගෙන යන්නේ නැහැ. parties settle වෙනවා. right? මගෙන් ලැබෙන දින මුදල මෙච්චරයි. ඔයාගේ වැඩ ටික ඉවර කරලා ඔයා යන්න අපි ගනුදෙනුව මෙතනින් අවසන්. settlement agreements. joint ventures කියලා කියන්නේ යම්කිසි ව්‍යාපෘතියක් සඳහා පමණක් ඇති කරගන්න ලද ගිවිසුමක් අනුව ව්‍යාපාර දෙක තුනක් කොන්ත්‍රාත්කරුවන් කීප දෙනෙක් එකතු වෙලා යම්කිසි මොඩල් එකක් හදාගන්න. ඒකට තමයි joint ventures කියලා කියන්නේ. partnerships කියලා කියන්නේ දීර්ඝකාලීන සැලසුමක් යටතේ කම්පැනි දෙකක් හෝ තුනක් හෝ ඊට වැඩි ප්‍රමාණයක් එකතු වෙලා ව්‍යාපාරික ගමනක් යන එකට තමයි අපි partnerships කියලා කියන්නේ. right. දැන් මීට අමතරව අපිට කතා කරන්න දේවල් තියෙනවා අපිට මේ procurement ගැන කතා කරනකොට. There are certain areas we have to discuss investment. එහෙම නැත්නම් project financing, sorry, there's something wrong. Project financing models. These are not actually contracts. These are models. ඒ කියන්නේ ව්‍යාපාරයකට මුදල් යොදවන ආකාරය ගැන ඉන්වෙස්ට්මන්ට් කරන ආකාරය ගැන මොඩල්ස් තියෙනවා. අපි මොඩල්ස් දෙක තුනක් ගැන කතා කරමු මේක අවශ්‍ය වෙනවා ඔබගේ දැනුමට. පළවෙනි එක public private partnerships PPP. ඒ කියන්නේ ආණ්ඩුවකට පාලමක් හදන්න ඕනේ. ඒ පාලම හදන්න එහෙම නැත්නම් හයිවේ එකක් හදන්න ඕනේ. මේක හදන්න ආණ්ඩුවටම සල්ලි නැහැ. එතකොට මේ කරන්නේ මොකද්ද? ප්‍රයිවට් පුද්ගලික අංශයට ආරාධනා කරනවා මේ පාලම හදන්න මේ ඉන්ෆ්‍රාස්ට්‍රක්චර් එක ගොඩනගන්න අපිත් එක්ක එකතු වෙන්න අපිට මුදල් දෙන්න කියලා. හැබැයි මුදල් ආපසු ගෙවීමේ ක්‍රමත් තියෙනවා අපි ඊළඟට කතා කරමු. එතකොට මේ වගේ ක්‍රමවේදයකට අපි කියනවා PPP. Public private partnerships. It is happening to allow private sector to invest on government projects, especially bridges, the big infrastructure project like highways. So especially in the western part of the world, they are using this mechanism widely. Then private finance initiative, PFI. This is what a private company, private body is investing on a government project. So he will have a mechanism to take this money back. So that is PFI. So the mechanisms how to repay, there are many ways. Build, operate and transfer BOT, build, own, operate BOO, build, own, operate and transfer BOOT. So this is where these are the most famous mechanisms how to pay back the investment from the private sector. You know, build, operate, transfer. The Katunayaka Highway is one of that. The one Chinese company, they invested on the Colombo Katunayaka Highway. They built it and they operate it, and they take the money for 20 years. After 20 years, they have to hand over the road to the government. Some projects build, own and operate. ඒගොල්ලෝ ඉති කරනවා, ඒගොල්ලෝ තමයි අයිතිකාරයෝ, ඒගොල්ලෝ ඔපරේට් කරනවා. අනිත් ක්‍රමේ තමයි build own operate and transfer. ඒගොල්ලෝ අයිතිකාරයෝ හැටියට සහ ඔපරේටර් හැටියට දෙකටම ඉන්නවා ඉදිකිරීමෙන් පස්සේ. හැබැයි යම් කිසි කාලෙකදී ට්‍රාන්ස්ෆර් කරන්න ඕනේ. ඒකට මේ විවිධ ක්‍රම තියෙනවා. අර මේ මුලින් අපි කතා කරපු ඉන්වෙස්ට්මන්ට් ක්‍රම, කියන්නේ පුද්ගලික අංශයේ සල්ලි යොදා ගන්න ක්‍රම ආපසු ගෙවන්න ක්‍රම වේදයන් තමයි මේ mechanisms වලින් කියන්නේ. The private investment to be paid back. So how to pay is BOT, BOOT, right? And we talk about SPVs, special purpose vehicles. These are the mechanisms you build, the structures to run a specific project. So in a SPV, you can see shareholders are there, these project owners, right? Then they have a shareholders agreement. Then they initiate the special purpose vehicle. Now, for this special purpose vehicle, you need a construction contract and a contractor. You can see that they are connecting, right? Then off-takers are there. The other people who are investing, who are getting benefit from this project, they are also joining. Then lenders also join in, the banks, financial institutes. So they will have loan agreements in between. Then in the Western countries, there are security trustees. Those are like banks, but they are the people who are having deposits. So they also joining to fund this project. And contractor can have a direct agreement with security trustees. Even off-takers, they can have agreement with the security trustees. So this is one of the structures for SPV. So we have to understand, for certain projects, especially big projects, they can have special purpose vehicle to run the project. As a contracting organization, we discuss a joint venture also, SPV, to run that project only. So special purpose vehicle. එම ගමන යාම සඳහා නිෂ්පාදනය කරපු වාහනයකින් පස්සේ වාහනය තවදුරටත් පාවිච්චි කරන්නේ නැහැ. අපි සිංහලෙන් තේරුම් ගන්න ඕනේ ඒක. Special purpose vehicle. නියමිත කාරණයක් සඳහා තනන ලද වාහනය. ඒකෙන් අපිට සම්පූර්ණ අයිඩියා එක එනවා. සම්පූර්ණ උත්තරේ එන්න ඕනේ. Right. ඊළඟට we are going to discuss about standard and bespoke contracts. So bespoke, the terminology bespoke is a very nice idea. So what is standard forms? Standard contracts forms are established by professional bodies or for common use, like FIDIC, JCT, NEC, ICTAD. So they have standard contract forms. So they draft these standard forms for international or common use. They don't know who is the specific user. So they build, they create, they draft standard conditions, right? Then if a particular specific user is going to use these standard forms, it is ideally to apply factors and modify. Don't use as it is. So what are the factors? Number one, geographical location. So FIDIC created in a Western country. So when we are going to apply those conditions in United Arab Emirates or Sri Lanka, is it an ideal way to use as it is? Definitely no, because our laws are different, right? Our applications are different, our customs are different, right? Our cultures are different. So it is ideal to change this, modify it. and end user requirements. Now, if it is the end user, the employee is a big developer in Dubai, right? So he has certain requirements. He has some certain attitudes, approaches towards the contractors, right? So he should be able to change it. That is the proper way. Applicable laws and regulations I mentioned. So this is very critical. So from Europe to United Arab Emirates, it's a huge change of the laws and regulations. Cultures, I told you, the relationship between people, it is different. Customs, different. Country to country, area to area, region to region. So standard forms are not like Bible we can use everywhere. It is ideal to modify, right? So there are two ways to modify. Either modify clauses in general conditions itself, changing all the wording, or keep the standard form as it is as the general conditions and change whatever you want in the particular conditions. There are two ways. අපිට පුළුවන් ඒ condition එක change කරන්න සම්පූර්ණයෙන්ම ඒ general condition එකම ඇතුලේ සම්පූර්ණයෙන්ම වෙනස් කරනවා. එහෙම නැත්නම් අර particular condition එකේ වෙනස් කරනවා. අරක එහෙමම තියෙනවා standard form එක ඒ විදිහටම අපරක්වත් වෙනස් නොකර ඒ විදිහට තියලා particular condition එකේ වෙනස් කරනවා. සමහර විට අපි contracts දකිනවා හැම clause එකම වෙනස් කරනවා particular condition. ඒකත් තේරුමක් නැති වැඩක් කියලා මම හිතන්නේ. So there are two ways to do it. Either changing in the general conditions or in the particular conditions. So modified general condition is part of bespoke contracts. So if we look at a contract, if that contract is totally modified, totally changed from the standard forms, we call bespoke contracts. If somebody is using standard forms, we call it is a standard form of contract. Then අපි දන්නවා standard forms contract FIDIC එකෙන් හදනවා NEC JCT ICTAD එකේ ඒවා හදලා තියෙන්නේ ඒ රටවල් වලට ගැලපෙන්නේ ඒ කලාප වලට ගැලපෙන්නේ ඒගොල්ලන්ගේ experience එකේ හැටියට තමයි ඒවා draft කරලා තියෙන්නේ. දැන් මේ draft කරන agreements ඒ විදිහටම ඒ ලෝකේ වෙනත් තැනක පාවිච්චි කරන්න ඕන කියලා නියමයක් නැහැ. එහෙම වෙන්නේත් නැහැ. භූගෝලීය ලක්ෂණ අනුව දේශපාලනික තත්ත්වය අනුව නීති රීති අනුව ඒ රටේ මිනිස්සුන්ගේ අවතුම් පැවතුම් අනුව සංස්කෘතිය අනුව මේ වෙනස් වෙන්න පුළුවන්. මේක වෙනස් කරන්න ක්‍රම දෙකක් තියෙනවා. එකක් තියෙනවා general conditions එක ඇතුලේ wording සම්පූර්ණයෙන් වෙනස් කරලා ඒක වෙනස් කරනවා. එහෙම නැත්නම් ඒ general condition standard form එක හැටියට එහෙම තියලා particular condition එකේ Tamanට අවශ්‍ය area ටික විතරක් වෙනස් කරනවා. මේ දෙකටම ඉතා significant තත්ත්වයෙන් conditions වෙනස් වෙන තැනදී අපි කියනවා මේක bespoke contract එකක් කියලා. ඒතර මේ වචනෙට අපි බය වෙන්න හොඳ නැහැ. bespoke කියලා කියන්නේ modified from the standard version. Right. Now we are going to talk about a famous standard contracts, FIDIC. I heard that even ICTAD is based on FIDIC. So FIDIC is very familiar in most parts of the world, especially in Gulf region, Middle East region. The FIDIC is a Bible. Why? Yes, it is most famous, popular in the region. Why it is popular? So we'll discuss why it is popular, why it is mostly used and familiar. Number one, it is addressing the stakeholders or the contracting parties' requirements reasonably. Why I say reasonably? No contract is perfect. No contract can address all the requirements of stakeholders or the contracting parties. Not possible. But we believe, by experience, by practice, it is addressing most of the requirements. And we believe that it is sharing risk fairly. Now we discuss from the beginning of this session. We have many risks. So these risks should be shared between parties fairly. So FIDIC is sharing risk fairly. And familiar with contracting parties, since it is most popular, it is widespread in this region, the contracting parties is aware about this FIDIC. So if a contractor is going to quote for a project, bid for a project, if he can see that FIDIC contracts are in action, he will be happy because he knows the type of the form of the contract. If it is not familiar, what will happen? He will price the risk of unknown things. Okay, so it is not good for the project. And FIDIC, we can see it is user friendly. Okay, because we use it, we can say it is user friendly. But when we are handling, when we are managing the clauses and how it is interrelated between the clauses, and we can see some user friendly situation. Then the most important thing, it is being updated reasonably. Now we saw 1987, we saw 1999. Okay, it is 12 years. Then 2000, I believe 2007, 12. Then 2000. Recently also there is an update in 2017. So things are updated. So why they are updating this? Why they are changing? Because they have experience. Sometimes people are happy, the feedback is good. Sometimes people are complaining about the previous version. Now from FIDIC 1987 to 1999, we can see big development. There are lessons learned. For example, engineer's decision. So engineer, we know, even though it says engineer impartial in 1987, we know that engineer is paid by the employer. So he has some kind of influence, especially when the decision required, an independent review and decision required for a dispute, then it may not be appropriate to keep the engineer, even though he says impartial, paid by the employer. So FIDIC identified this. From 1987 to 1999, they changed this method to dispute adjudication board, an independent committee to resolve the disputes, right? And 1987 to 1999, advance payment clause came. Value engineering came to the picture. So people will be benefited from value engineering contractually, influence to do value engineering. So that is a development. And termination on convenience. Of course, if employer want to terminate the contract, if he cannot fund anymore, he should have the right to terminate. For me, it is a reasonable provision. But however, if that clause is in effect on the opposite direction, there should be another remedy. The contractor should be aware that how this employee is going to fund the project. So in 1999 FIDIC, there is a clause that employer has to reveal the method that he is going to finance this project. Is he going to sell off plan? Is he going to take a loan from a bank? How he is going to fund? So if he is showing this information and it is acceptable to the contractor, then due to some unavoidable reason, he is going to terminate the contract. Okay, it's fine. Means the employer has no other option but to terminate. So this way, the risk is balanced, right? Okay. Practice for a long period and tested. This is a big reason why FIDIC is familiar, popular in this part of the world. When you practice this for 20, 30, 35 years, then people are familiar and people tested. The system is tested. And many projects delivered using FIDIC without big complications. So it means it is tested, right? Okay, so because of this, FIDIC is very important. Today, our discussion will be based on FIDIC, right? I FIDIC contracts can measure kata karane. I FIDIC measure family. I FIDIC can measure unandu enne. Eka tamai godakma prasiddha janapriya form of contract එක. අපි විශ්වාස කරනවා ඒක පාවිච්චි කරන ඒ contracting parties වල උවමනාවන් බොහෝ දුරට ඒ උවමනාවන් වලට කතා කරනවා. ඊළඟට risk share කරන එක ගොඩක් කොට සාධාරණව සිද්ධ වෙනවා කියලා විශ්වාස කරනවා. ඊළඟට contracting parties වල මේක ගොඩක් family ඒගොල්ලෝ මේක ගැන හොඳට දන්නවා. මේක පාවිච්චි කරනකොට අපිට පහසුවක් දැනෙනවා. ක්‍රමවේදය සරලයි. ඊළඟට මේක නිතරම අප්ඩේට් වෙනවා 87 99 මේ වගේ අප්ඩේට් වෙනවා එතකොට ලෝකේ සමාජයේ ඉන්ඩස්ට්‍රි එකේ සිද්ධ වෙන සිදුවීම් අනුව එක්ස්පීරියන්ස් අනුව මේක යාවත් කාලීන වෙන එක ලොකු දෙයක් ඊළඟට මේක ප්‍රැක්ටිස් කරලම මේක ටෙස්ට් මේකේ රිසල්ට්ස් අපි දන්නවා මේ හේතු නිසා ෆිඩික් අපි ෆිඩික් ගැන කතා කරනවා හොඳයි ෆිඩික් රේන්බෝ සූට් 1999 ගැන අපි කතා කරමු රේන්බෝ සූට් කියන එක ඉස්සෙල්ලාම ආවේ 1999 මේකේ තියෙන අපි versions 4-5ක් ගැන අපි විවිධ types 4-5ක් කතා කරමු මේකෙන් අපි අද බලාපොරොත්තු වෙන්නේ ඇයි මේ විවිධ ඒවා තියෙන්නේ මොකටද අපේ procurement වලට මේක වැදගත් වෙන්නේ කියන එක කතා කරන්න why we are going to discuss these 3-4 types the different types of FIDIC to understand why we need different types that's why we are learning here so first one the most famous one the red book the conditions of contract for construction for building and engineering works designed by employer this is the key area also known as the construction contract the yellow book condition of contract for plant and design bill for electrical and mechanical plant and for building and engineering works both designed by contractor this is the yellow book also known as the plant and design and build contract the silver book the third type condition of contracts for EPC turnkey projects we discussed in our previous session what is EPC turnkey and what is the difference between design build and EPC turnkey projects so then the last one is a green book or the short form of contract suitable for small contracts so if you are doing a very small project like 5 million 6 million why we need 72 process conditions a big agreement we don't want so we can have a small contract so these are the types for different purposes which FIDIC established in 1999 other FIDIC forms the white book for the consultancy agreements with the employer the blue book for the dredging and reclamation projects the pink book conditions of contract for construction MDB, multilateral development banks, harmonized division. So the banks, when they give loans, when they are giving financial facilities, they want to use certain conditions. So pink book addressing that. The gold book also for design and build and operate contracts. And there's no color, but there is subcontract forms. So these are the different type of forms. So idea here not to explain in depth about these forms, but why we need different forms. Right now we are discussing about drafting contract. This is very important. Now who is going to draft the contract? Can a quantity survey draft the contract? If somebody asks, the answer is no. So drafting contract should be done by to be performed by skilled professionals, mainly construction lawyers. So they should draft. The FIDIC also drafted by construction lawyers and engineers. So they know what's to be there. And to be comprehensive, leaving no gaps. Now we have discussed what are the critical items to be included in the contract. So the people who are drafting, they should know what are the areas to be covered. Should not be any gap. And to be drafted and reviewed by construction lawyers. So even if you cannot draft, if you are not a lawyer, the contract should be reviewed by the lawyer at least. Now we know when we issue LOAs, the regular developers, they have a team of lawyers. So every document, every bond, guarantee, warranty, all these things being reviewed by the lawyers. It is an essential process. Why we need this? To avoid future complications. So if any provisional added or deleted, it need to state in particular conditions. So people wants to delete or add contractual provisions in the general conditions, deviating from the standard contracts. Yes, you can do it, but please mention in the particular conditions, properly mention. And again, if any clause amended, then all relevant clauses to be modified. So if you do any change in the, for example, in the variation clause, clause 51, it may affect other clauses. Because if you read very carefully in one contractual provision, one clause, it is referring to other clauses. It is impacting to the other clauses. So you cannot just modify one clause itself and keep quiet. You have to address all other areas. Then ambiguities and discrepancies to be avoided and minimized. So, what is ambiguities? What is discrepancies? Ambiguities means that things are not clear. You are using vague language, for example. Nobody can understand. It is not clear. The same terminology used for two items, for example. And discrepancy means the difference. What we call the BOQ says one thing, drawing says one thing, drawing says one thing, specification says something else. So this is discrepancy. So when we draft the contract, we have to avoid or minimize the ambiguities and discrepancies. Right, ambiguities and discrepancies we will discuss a little bit further. What is the difference? We discuss how to avoid. Yes, we have to avoid by using skilled professionals to draft the contract. The documents, if you call if you take the volume 1 to 5, it will be properly coordinated, designed, and the pricing information should be there. The specification and drawing should be properly coordinated. BOQ should be properly coordinated as much as possible. And when you use the language, you should use the clear language with appropriate definitions. Don't use vague language. Don't use double standards, double meanings when you are write the contracts. And price and preambles, as the quantity service, we know the importance of the price and preambles. It says how to pay. What are the things to be considered? What are excluded? What are included? And the priority of documents. All of these things, whatever I have mentioned, you do. But still, if you are not sure about something, you keep the priority of documents as the last option. If some ambiguity or discrepancy happen, then you have to use the priority of documents. First, contract agreement or the particular conditions, general conditions, specifications, drawings, then BOQ or BOQ before the drawings. So these things are happening. අපි contract එකක් තියෙනවා අපි දන්නවා contract එක දැන් අපි කතා කළා agreement එක තියෙනවා conditions තියෙනවා drawings තියෙනවා specifications තියෙනවා BOQ එක තියෙනවා දැන් මේවා හොඳට සම්බන්ධීකරණය කරන්න ඕනේ මේකේ තියෙන තොරතුරු එකට ගැලපෙන්නට ඕනේ එකට යන්නට ඕනේ මේවා වෙනස් වෙන්න බෑ පුළුවන් තරම් දුරට මේක ආරක්ෂා කරන්න ඊළඟට clear language එකකින් ලියන්න ඕනේ double කියන්නේ විවිධ තේරුම් කීපයක් තියෙන language එකකින් contract එක ලියන්න හොඳ නැහැ ඒතර contract දන්නේ නැහැ මොකද්ද මේ හරියට ඊළඟට pricing preambles හරිම වැදගත් හොඳ pricing preamble එකක් තියෙන්න ඕනේ BOQ එකට කොහොමද contract price කරන්න කියන එක හරියට කියන්න exclusion inclusions හොඳට තියෙන්න ඕනේ පැහැදිලිවම කියලා මේ ඔක්කොම කරලා තව දුරටත් අපිට සමහර විට අපැහැදිලි තැන් එන්න පුළුවන් ගැලපෙන්නේ නැති තැන් එන්න පුළුවන් between documents එම නිසා අපි contract document එකේ කියන්න ඕනේ priority of documents ඒ කියන්නේ ambiguity එකකදී හෝ discrepancy එකකදී මොන volume එකද consider කරන්නේ volume 1 the 2 the 3 the 4 condition ගත්තොත් මේම example එකකට general condition එකේ එකක් කියනවා හැබැයි ඒක හරියටම පැහැදිලි කරලා කියන particular condition. ඒකෝට මූලික වෙන්නේ particular condition. ඊළඟට drawing එකේ එකක් කියනවා specification එකේ තව කියනවා specification එක තමයි වැදගත් වෙන්නේ. ඒක තමයි හරියටම කියන්නේ මේ වැඩේ කරන්න කොහොමද කියන එක. drawing එකේ පෙන්නනවා ඒ location එක dimensions පෙන්නනවා. නමුත් ඊට වඩා වැදගත් specification. ඒ නිසා priority එකේදී specification එක මුලට යනවා. right. දැන් අපි කතා කරනවා types of contracts කියලා අපි කියනවා මෙහි. Payment mechanisms කියලා කියනවා. මේ දෙකම කියනවා. We are using both the terminologies types of contracts and payment mechanisms. We sign the contract, we agree, we know that what are the conditions or everything, what is the scope. Now how to pay? This is important. There are many ways to pay to the contractor. So we call payment mechanisms. So number one, the most famous one is lump sum fixed price contracts. It means he has to deliver the project at a lump sum price. The price is fixed. There is no deviation, no variations. Variations is there, but your original signed contract is a lump sum contract. So contractor, when he priced the lump sum contract, he has to take all the risk. He has to take the risk of the quantities. He has to take the risk of the scope, and he has to give a lump sum amount to build a project. Remeasure contracts. Mostly infrastructure contracts are remeasured. It is not lump sum. So whatever the quantities contractor execute, he will get paid. So why this mechanism happen? Why not all contracts, including infrastructure, lump sum? We have to ask this question: why infrastructure, especially road contracts, are remeasured? What is the reason? So if infrastructure keep as lump sum, infrastructure and road projects, we know that risk is more. The nature is different than a building. Building, you normally build in one place. You know the conditions of the soil condition, whatever the problems, issues raised, you know, in one location. But roads, infrastructure is not. It is in a wider area, and you are dealing with the soil, you are dealing with the earth conditions. So the risks are more. So if you trying to keep all the quantities in one bag and asking a price from the contractor, so what contractor, smart contractor will do, he will price all the risk in that. So when pricing the risk, there will be some undue risk pricing there. To avoid that, lump sums are good for the buildings, remeasure good for the infrastructure. So it means if actual quantity is X, you will be paid X. Then term contracts. What are the term contracts? We have some certain works. It is repeatedly happening in a certain area, in a certain project, during a certain period. Same activity, similar activities happening in different locations in different times. For example, we will take a petrochemical project like gas and oil fields. If you go to a desert, you can see hundreds of oil wells. So there are activities on oil wells and related infrastructure. So the oil and gas companies, the owners, governments, they appoint service contractors, for example. So they will have a 4 years, 3 years service contracts, and they have to do the typical works in all the oil wells. They have to give the power, they have to lay the collection pipes, they have to procure and secure the oil wells, collecting stations, that operation. These are the typical activities. So they call service contracts, and it is happening everywhere. And the quantities are not certain. Nobody can say within 4 years I will give you this much quantity, this much work order. For 4 years price, the quantity contractor rates and use these rates. Then we have cost plus contracts. In the western part of the world, developed countries, this is the most famous way. This is the trend actually. The cost plus means there's no lump sum story, no remeasure stories. Whatever the cost incurring for a project by the contractor, he will get the price. We call open book system. So two accounting teams sitting from the both sides, they record all the transactions, and the cost will be paid. But when we pay the cost, there should be some mechanisms to cap the prices. So we call guaranteed maximum price, GMP. So how do we do this? The contractor and the employer, they discuss and agree, okay, we will pay cost plus, but the contractor will do an estimate and employee will review and agree, okay, this is my maximum price. Even though we are going for cost plus, this is my maximum price, GMP, guaranteed maximum price. If we exceed this price, the gain or pain will be shared. Means if this price is exceed by 5%, 2.5%, the 5% the contractor has to take. Normally this is what is happening. If it is exceeding, you have to take care. But if you have a saving, if the project completed before the guaranteed maximum price by 10 million, the contractor will get 5 million and employee will get 5 million. So this is the sharing of gain. But mostly the pain will be transferred to the contractor. It's not fair, but it is happening. So these are the payment mechanisms or the types of the contracts. Right. Now, for the payments, we know we should have method of measurements. This is our core area as contract surveys. Right. This is our lifeblood. So if we know the standard methods of measurements, principles of measurements international, POMI, civil engineering standard method of measurement, CESMM, new rules of measurements, NRM 123, standard method of measurement, SMM, and other ad hoc methods. So these are the standard methods of measurements. So for the pricing, for the payments, for the evaluation of variations, so we have these methods. Okay, if somebody asks why we need standard methods, why can't we use ad hoc methods? So the answer is the standard method will provide a common platform to all parties in pricing, tender analysis, payments, valuation of variations. And it is familiar to all parties. Everybody know about POMI when we say, when he receive a tender document and when he read the preamble, when he see that this BOQ is measured by using POMI, he knows that how the risk allocated. What are the things included? What are the things excluded? And how is going to be measured when he is executing the contract? How is getting paid? And it is tested and experienced, like forms of contracts. POMI, SISM are tested and experienced. People know the risk. People know the advantages or disadvantages, and they know how to price them. Then, if we have a standard method of measurement, the people know what is going to be happen. So they will price the risk. So it will be less disputes in later stages. So that is the purpose of having standard methods of measurements, right? ඇයි අපි standard method of measurements use කරන්න කියලා බල කරන්නේ? ඇයි අපි ඒකට කැමති? ඇයි අපි ඒක යෝජනා කරන්නේ? කියලා කවුරු හරි ඇහුවොත් ඒකට කියන්න තියෙන්නේ මේක පොදු වේදිකාවක් වෙනවා. ටෙන්ඩර් එකක් ප්‍රයිස් කරනකොටනේ හැමෝම දන්නවා රයිට් මේක මැනලා තියෙන්නේ POMI. එහෙමනම් අපි මේක ප්‍රයිස් කරන්න ඕනේ මේ විදියට. එස්ටිමේට් එකක් කරනවා නම් මේ විදියට කරන්න ඕනේ කියලා අපි දන්නවා. ඒක කියලා තිබ්බ ඒක එහෙම නැත්තම් ස්ටෑන්ඩඩ් මෙතඩ් එක නෙමෙයි නම් කන්ට්‍රැක්ටර්ස්ලා 10 දෙනෙක් ඉන්නවා නම් ඒ ප්‍රයිස් කරනවා 10 විදියට. එතකොට කොහොමද ටෙන්ඩර් එක ඇනලයිස් කරන්නේ? කොහොමද කම්පෙයාර් කරන්නේ? ඊළඟට payments කරනකොට එතකොට අපි දන්නවා මේ payments කරන basis එකක් තියෙනවා. මේ basis එක තමයි POMI ට හදපු BOQ. එතකොට අපි දන්නවා මේක ගෙවෙන්නේ මේ විදිහට කියලා. ඊළඟට valuation variations අපිට remeasure කරන්න වෙනවා valuations මේ මොනවද variations. එතකොට remeasure කරනකොට අපි දන්නවා එතකොට contractor දන්නවා මේ variation එක මනින්නේ මේ විදිහට. ඒ නිසා මම estimate කරන්න ඕනේ මේ විදිහට. එතකොට common platform එකක් create කරන එක තමයි ප්‍රධානම වාසිය standard method of measurements. Familiar to all parties. Contract එකක් ගන්න යනකොට tender එකක් ගන්න යනකොට contractor දන්නවා මේක POMI ට අනුව මැනපු project එකක්. එතකොට එයා දන්නවා ඒක ඇතුළේ තියෙන risk එක. එයා දන්නවා ඒක කොයිතරම් එයා familiar ද ඒ terms එක. එතකොට එයා price කරන්න එයාට හරිම ලේසි. එයා risk එකක් නැතුව price කරනවා. ඊළඟට මේක tested මේක experience කරලා තියෙන අවුරුදු 30ක් 40ක් 20ක් 30ක්. එතකොට මේකේ තියෙන අවුල් සහගත තැන් උඩට ඇවිල්ලා කතා බහ වෙලා solutions අරගෙන amendments කරලා මේක tested. ඒ නිසා අපි දන්නවා මේක පාවිච්චි කරන්න පුළුවන් කියලා වඩා හොඳින්. ඊළඟට මේ විදිහේ standard method එක common platform එකක් use කරනකොට disputes අඩුයි. මොකද හැමෝම ඉන්නේ එකම page එකේ එකම තැන ඉන්නේ. ඒ නිසා ඒක 아무තින් කියන්න දෙයක් නැහැ. ඒ නිසා standard forms, standard methods of